The ultimatum. The Solidian Confederation had ruled the stars for 15,000 years. Their sleek, crystalline vessels were symbols of authority across 17 galactic arms, their technology the envy of 1,000 species. The Solidians themselves, tall, graceful beings with iridescent skin that shifted colors with their emotions, considered their dominance the natural order of things. They had not faced a serious challenge in millennia. Ambassador Theralus stood at the observation deck of the diplomatic nexus, his skin a calm azure blue as he gazed out at the swirling nebula that served as backdrop to the station. He was waiting for the humans, a species that had recently caught the Confederation's attention, not for their technological prowess, which was modest at best, but for their inexplicable rate of expansion. "Ambassador, the Earth delegation has arrived," announced his aide, a young Solidian whose skin betrayed nervous flickers of yellow. "Show them in, Navari. And remember, they are merely a curiosity, nothing more." The humans who entered were unimpressive by Solidian standards, small, fragile-looking creatures with only a fraction of the Solidian lifespan. Leading them was Ambassador Sarah Chen, a woman whose dark eyes missed nothing as she surveyed the chamber. "Ambassador Theralus," she said, extending a hand in the human custom. "Thank you for hosting us on this magnificent station." Theralus touched her hand briefly, his skin rippling with faint amusement. "The Confederation welcomes Earth to the galactic community, though you are still finding your place." "We're quick learners," Chen replied with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. The meeting proceeded as Theralus had expected. The humans sought trade agreements, technological exchanges, and formal recognition of their colonial territories, all standard requests from emerging species. The Solidian Council had instructed Theralus to be generous. Within limits, Earth would be permitted controlled access to Level 3 technologies, trade routes in their immediate sector, and recognition of their existing colonies. Nothing that would upset the balance of power. "These terms are acceptable," Chen said after reviewing the proposal, "though we had hoped for access to gravitational manipulation technologies." Theralus's skin flickered briefly to a dismissive violet. "Perhaps in a century or two, when your civilization has matured." Chen nodded, her expression unreadable. "Of course. Time is perceived differently by our species." That evening, as Theralus prepared his report to the council, his aide burst into his chambers, skin flashing alarmed yellows and reds. "Ambassador, we've received disturbing intelligence from the Proxima Centauri monitoring station. The humans, they've developed a prototype gravitational drive." Theralus blinked slowly. "Impossible. They're barely a century into space exploration." "The data is conclusive, sir. It appears they've been concealing their technological advancement. And there's more. They've established 17 colonies beyond their registered territories, using some form of stealth technology that evaded our sensors." For the first time in his 300-year career, Theralus felt his skin shift to the deep orange of concern. The Grand Council chamber on Solidia Prime was rarely filled to capacity, but today every seat was taken. High Counselor Veridon, the most ancient of Solidians, presided over the emergency session, his skin a controlled and regal purple. "The human situation has become untenable," he began, his voice resonating through the chamber. "In merely 50 standard cycles since our first contact, they have expanded at a rate that threatens regional stability." Holographic displays materialized, showing the explosive growth of human territory and influence. What had begun as a single solar system had expanded to nearly 80, with human trade vessels appearing in sectors far from their recognized territories. "Most concerning," continued the Minister of Technology, her skin pulsing with agitated green, "is their rate of technological adaptation. They are not innovators in the traditional sense. They do not create new fundamental technologies. Instead, they take existing concepts and improve them in ways we would never consider." "Elaborate," commanded Veridon. "The humans observed our standard plasma containment fields during a diplomatic exchange 3 cycles ago. Within one cycle, they had created a variant that uses 40% less energy while being 23% more effective. They simply removed components we considered essential and reconfigured the emitter geometry in a way that should not work, but does. Murmurs rippled through the chamber, Solidian skin shifting through spectrums of disbelief and concern. "They are dangerous," declared the military overseer, his skin a harsh red. "Not because they can match our power, they cannot, but because they are unpredictable. They do not follow established patterns of development. They take leaps where other species take steps." Veridon absorbed the information, his ancient eyes studying the projections. "What do you propose?" "Containment," the overseer replied immediately. "A clear demonstration of our superiority, followed by restrictions on their expansion and technology. They must be shown their place in the galactic hierarchy." After hours of debate, the Council reached consensus. The Solidian Confederation would issue an ultimatum to Earth: halt all unauthorized expansion, surrender advanced technological prototypes for Solidian oversight, and accept permanent Solidian advisors on all human worlds. Compliance would be rewarded with continued peace. Defiance would be met with the full might of the Confederation. The human embassy on Solidia Prime was a modest structure compared to the crystalline spires surrounding it. Inside, Ambassador Chen received the Solidian ultimatum with a calm that surprised the delegation delivering it. "I will, of course, transmit this to Earth immediately," she said. "How long do we have to formulate our response?" "The Council grants 10 standard cycles," replied the Solidian diplomat, his skin showing confidence bordering on smugness. Chen nodded. "More than sufficient. Thank you for your courtesy." After the Solidians departed, Chen activated a secure communication channel to Earth's unified government. President Okonkwo's hologram appeared almost instantly, far faster than should have been possible across such distances. "They've made their move, Madam President," Chen reported, transferring the ultimatum. Okonkwo reviewed the document, her expression hardening. "Exactly as intelligence predicted. They've finally noticed us." "Yes, Mom. Our assessment was correct. They don't understand us at all. They think we're just another predictable species to be managed." "Their mistake." Okonkwo's voice was quiet but firm. "Implement Poseidon Protocol. All fleets to defensive positions. Colonial evacuations to begin immediately. Priority to research outposts and prototype facilities." "And the official response?" Okonkwo smiled grimly. "Tell them exactly what they expect to hear. Complete compliance, humble gratitude for their generosity. The works. We need another 72 hours to complete preparations." "And after that?" "After that, Ambassador, humanity stops pretending." High Counselor Veridon was surprised when the human response arrived only 3 cycles after the ultimatum was delivered. "They've agreed to all terms," reported Ambassador Theralis, his skin showing the bright blue of satisfaction. "They request only a modest implementation period of 10 cycles to recall ships and prepare their systems for our advisors." "As expected," Veridon said, though something in the human capitulation nagged at him. It had been too quick, too complete. "Send a verification team to Earth immediately. I want visual confirmation of their compliance." The verification team never reported back. 7 cycles after the human acceptance of terms, all communication with Solidian outposts near human territory ceased simultaneously. Monitoring stations went dark. Trade vessels disappeared. And on the edges of Solidian space, the long-range sensors detected something impossible. A fleet of ships unlike any in their records, moving with precision towards Solidian territory. In the council chamber, chaos erupted as the reports filtered in. Veridon called for order, his skin now the deep crimson of crisis. "What are we facing?" he demanded of the military overseer. The overseer's skin had paled to a sickly white. "Unknown vessel configurations, sir. At least 8,000 ships, possibly more. They're using some form of propulsion we've never encountered. They're moving faster than our fastest vessels, while expending minimal energy signature. Impossible, whispered a counselor. They were nothing. A footnote species. We need to open communication channels, insisted another. There must be some misunderstanding. The transmission, when it came, was broadcast on all Solidian frequencies simultaneously, bypassing encryption protocols that should have been impenetrable. President Okonkwo's face appeared on the Council's main display. High Counselor Veridon, and esteemed members of the Solidian Confederation. She began, her voice steady and resolute. For 50 years, humanity has observed your civilization with interest. We have studied your technologies, your strategies, your beliefs. We have mapped your strengths and your weaknesses. We have prepared for this day since our first contact, when your representatives made it clear that your confederation recognizes only strength. Veridon struggled to maintain composure. What is the meaning of this aggressive action? You accepted our terms. Okonkwo smiled, but there was no warmth in it. We accepted nothing. We needed time, and you gave it to us. The Solidian Confederation has ruled through fear and technological superiority for too long. You believed your position unassailable. You were wrong. This is madness, Veridon said. You cannot hope to stand against the full might of the Confederation. We have dominated this galaxy for 15,000 years. Perhaps it's time for new management, Okonkwo replied. You have 24 hours to withdraw all forces from the following sectors. A list appeared beside her image. These territories will form a neutral zone between our civilizations. Respect this boundary, and we can coexist peacefully. Violate it, and learn firsthand why humanity survived on a world that tried to kill us every day of our evolution. The transmission ended, leaving the Council in stunned silence. The military overseer was the first to recover. This is absurd. They cannot possibly match our capabilities. I recommend immediate mobilization of the Grand Fleet to crush this rebellion before other species get similar ideas. Veridon studied the tactical displays, noting the positions of human forces and the territories they claimed. Something about their formation troubled him. They were not positioned for conquest, but for defense in depth. Perhaps, he said slowly, we should consider. Compliance would be seen as weakness, interrupted the overseer. We must respond with overwhelming force. The humans have overplayed their hand, and now they will learn the consequence of challenging the Confederation. After brief deliberation, the Council voted unanimously to authorize military action. The Grand Fleet, over 20,000 vessels that had not been mobilized together in 3,000 years, was ordered to assemble. The humans would be crushed, their worlds occupied, their species reduced to a cautionary tale for any who would challenge Solidian dominance. As the mobilization orders went out, Veridon found himself staring at the tactical displays, an unusual sensation settling in his ancient consciousness. It took him a moment to identify it, for he had not experienced it in centuries. It was doubt. The revelation. The Solidian Grand Fleet emerged from hyperspace in perfect formation, 20,000 vessels arranged in the traditional sphere of dominance configuration that had broken the will of countless civilizations. At its center, the Command Dreadnought Eternal Majesty housed Fleet Commander Zurax and his staff of the Confederation's most experienced tacticians. Tactical analysis of human defenses, Zurax ordered, his skin the confident gold of a commander about to secure an easy victory. Standard orbital platforms around their core worlds, sir, reported his second. Rudimentary defense grids, nothing our vanguard can't neutralize in minutes. Their fleet is maintaining defensive positions, approximately 8,000 vessels of varying configurations. Zurax studied the holographic display. The human fleet was arranged unlike any opposition he had faced in his 5-century career. Instead of the traditional layered defense, their ships were positioned in small, seemingly random clusters. Curious strategy, he murmured. No matter. Deploy according to standard conquest protocol. Target their command and control nodes first, then communication hubs. The Solidian Vanguard, 5,000 vessels designed for overwhelming first strikes, surged forward. Energy weapons powered up, filling space with the characteristic blue glow that had heralded the fall of civilizations. "Sir," his communications officer interrupted, skin flickering with confusion. "The humans are broadcasting on all frequencies, audio only. Let's hear what they have to say before we obliterate them," Zirax said with a dismissive gesture. The voice that filled the command deck was calm, almost conversational. "Solidian Fleet, this is Admiral Helena Vasquez of Earth Combined Defense. You are entering restricted space. We have no desire for conflict, but we will defend our territory. This is your final warning." Laughter rippled through the command deck, Solidian skin flashing amused yellows and oranges. "No response necessary," Zirax said. "Continue the advance." The Vanguard closed to firing range, targeting systems locking onto the nearest human defensive platforms. The first salvo, a coordinated barrage from 1,000 ships, lanced across space toward the human positions. What happened next would be analyzed by Solidian military academies for centuries. The energy weapons, technology perfected over thousands of years, simply disappeared mid-flight. Not absorbed, not deflected, but vanished as if they had never existed. Before the stunned Solidians could react, the small clusters of human ships began to move, not away from the Solidian fleet, but toward it, accelerating at speeds that should have crushed any organic crew. "Impossible," breathed the tactical officer, his skin pale with shock. "They're moving at over 300 gravities with no apparent propulsion exhaust. Evasive maneuvers," Zirax ordered, but it was too late. The human vessels were among them, moving through the Solidian formation as if the massive warships were standing still. They were not firing, not yet, just moving, analyzing, demonstrating their complete superiority in maneuverability. Then, with surgical precision, the humans struck, not with energy weapons or missiles, but with something the sensors couldn't even classify. Solidian ships simply stopped functioning. Power cores went dark, systems failed, and crews found themselves drifting in dead vessels. Within 20 minutes, 3,000 Solidian ships had been neutralized without a single confirmed destruction. No loss of life, just incapacitation. On the Eternal Majesty, Commander Zirax watched in horror as his fleet was systematically dismantled. His skin had lost all color, turning the ashen gray of absolute shock. "Full retreat," he ordered, his voice barely audible. "All functional vessels, emergency recall to Solidia Prime." The Grand Council chamber had never felt so silent. The holographic displays showed the unthinkable. The Grand Fleet in disarray, thousands of ships disabled and drifting, the remainder limping back to Solidian space. High Counselor Viridin's skin was the deep blue of mourning. "How?" he asked simply. "How did we miscalculate so dramatically?" The intelligence director stepped forward, her skin the sickly yellow of extreme stress. We believe they allowed us to see only what they wanted us to see. For 50 years, they displayed only technologies they wanted us to notice, expanded only in ways they wanted us to track." "An elaborate deception," Viridin said. "But to what end? If they possessed such capabilities, why not simply announce themselves as a major power?" "That's not their way," said a new voice. Ambassador Theralus entered the chamber, accompanied by a human, not Ambassador Chen, but a middle-aged man with graying hair and an expression of quiet confidence. "Counselors, this is Dr. Elijah Monroe, Earth's Director of Sinological Studies," Theralus announced. "My apologies for the intrusion," Monroe said, bowing slightly. "I've been authorized to provide explanations, if you're willing to listen." Viridin gestured for him to continue, too shocked by recent events to maintain normal protocols. "Humanity has been watching the stars for thousands of years," Monroe began, "long before we had the technology to reach them. We observed, we listened, we learned. When we finally developed faster than light travel a century ago, we didn't immediately announce ourselves. Instead, we sent stealth observation platforms throughout this sector of the galaxy." "Impossible," interrupted the technology minister. We would have detected such activities. Monroe smiled faintly. With respect, Minister, you detected exactly what we wanted you to detect. You see, humanity evolved on a world where everything, the environment, the wildlife, even microorganisms, was trying to kill us. We survived through pattern recognition, threat assessment, and adaptation. When we observed the Solidian Confederation, we recognized a familiar pattern, a predator species. The council bristled, Solidian skin flashing indignant colors. Not in the biological sense, Monroe clarified, but in your approach to galactic politics. You identify species with potential, allow them limited growth under your supervision, and then either absorb or neutralize them before they can become competitive. It's an effective strategy. It's maintained your dominance for 15 millennia. If you knew this, Veridon asked, why reveal yourselves at all? Because isolation isn't our nature. Humanity craves connection, exchange, community. But we needed to enter the galactic stage on our terms, not yours. So we showed you an embryonic spacefaring civilization, while our actual capabilities remained hidden. The military overseer, his skin now a mottled blend of anger and fear, leaned forward. The attack on our fleet, what technology could possibly neutralize our defenses so completely? Monroe hesitated. We call it the dampening field. It selectively cancels certain energy wavelengths and technological processes. We developed it primarily as a defensive measure, to ensure that no species could ever threaten Earth with extinction. And your ship's maneuverability, pressed the overseer. Inertial negation combined with gravitational manipulation. Our pilots experience no G-forces regardless of acceleration. The technology was originally developed for medical applications, treating victims of severe trauma, before we adapted it for spaceflight. The council chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. The humans hadn't developed weapons of war. They had created medical and defensive technologies so advanced they rendered conventional warfare obsolete. What happens now? Veridon finally asked. You've demonstrated your superiority. Do you intend to replace the Confederation as the dominant power? Monroe looked genuinely surprised. No, Counselor. Domination isn't our objective. We disabled your ships. We didn't destroy them. We could have eliminated your fleet entirely, but that would have contradicted our fundamental principles. Then what do you want? Partnership, Monroe said simply. Earth has authorized me to propose a new framework for galactic relations, not based on dominance and submission, but on mutual respect and defined boundaries. The Solidian Confederation would maintain its current territories, but the practice of technological suppression of emerging species would end. You would have us abandon 15,000 years of proven policy based on a single military engagement. The overseer demanded. No, Monroe replied. We would have you recognize that the galaxy is changing. Humanity isn't the only species that has been concealing its true capabilities. We've made contact with 12 other civilizations that have been doing exactly what we did, developing in secret to avoid Solidian attention. This revelation sent new shockwaves through the council. Veridon's ancient eyes narrowed. You're bluffing. Monroe smiled and gestured to the main display. It flickered, then showed a real-time view of Solidian space, from perspectives that should have been impossible without access to the Confederation's own sensor network. Multiple regions showed signs of previously undetected activities. Energy signatures, artificial structures, communication patterns. We're not alone in our caution, Monroe said quietly. The Raxus Collective has maintained a shadow civilization within 50 light-years of Solidia Prime for 3 centuries. The Taurilan Unity has developed subspace technologies that make your best sensors obsolete. The list goes on. Veridon slumped in his seat, his skin the pale blue of resignation. The Confederation as we know it is finished. Not finished, Monroe corrected. Evolved. Earth doesn't want to destroy what you've built. Much of it is admirable. Your artistic achievements, your architectural wonders, your philosophical traditions, These are valuable contributions to galactic culture. What we oppose is your method of maintaining power. And if we refuse your generous offer?" The overseer asked bitterly. Monroe's expression hardened slightly. "Then we step aside and watch as a dozen hidden civilizations emerge from the shadows, each with their own grievances against the Confederation. Some are not as restrained as humanity." 3 months later, Ambassador Chen stood on the observation deck of Earth's diplomatic station, watching as the first officially sanctioned Solidian human cultural exchange prepared to dock. Beside her, Ambassador Theralis' skin showed the cautious green of new beginnings. "Your Dr. Monroe was quite persuasive," Theralis commented. "The Transitional Council has implemented most of his recommendations already." Chen smiled. "Elijah has that effect on people. He genuinely believes in the possibility of a better galaxy. And you, Ambassador, what do you believe in?" "Preparation," she replied without hesitation. "Humanity will always hope for the best while preparing for the worst. It's in our nature." Theralis studied her with new understanding. "The Solidian philosophers teach that true strength lies not in domination, but in adaptation. I believe we are finally learning the truth of that teaching." "Better late than never," Chen said. "Though I suspect the transition won't be entirely smooth. 15,000 years of habits won't change overnight." "No," Theralis agreed, his skin shifting to a thoughtful purple. "But the alternative became unthinkable after what your fleet demonstrated. The military strategists are still trying to understand how your ships could move as they did." Chen's smile turned enigmatic. "Perhaps someday we'll share that technology, when trust has been established. And the other species, the ones that have been hiding like you, they're watching," Chen said. "How the Confederation handles this transition will determine whether they reveal themselves peacefully or otherwise." As the Solidian vessel completed its docking procedure, Chen reflected on how quickly the galaxy had changed. 3 months ago, humanity had stood on the brink of a war they had spent 50 years preparing for. Now, they were architects of a new galactic order, one based not on subjugation, but on boundaries and mutual respect. The irony wasn't lost on her. The Solidians had issued an ultimatum intended to contain humanity, never suspecting that it would instead unleash a force that would reshape galactic civilization. Not through violence or conquest, but through this simple revelation that the strong need not dominate the weak, that there were other, better ways to exist among the stars. "Shall we welcome our guests?" Theralis asked, his skin now the formal gold of diplomatic function. Chen nodded, setting aside her reflections. "By all means, Ambassador. The future awaits." As they moved toward the docking bay, a message chimed on Chen's secure communicator. It was from Fleet Command, marked urgent. New long-range sensors had detected unusual activity in the galactic core, energy signatures that matched none of the known species, including those recently emerged from hiding. Something else was out there, watching. Chen tucked the communicator away. That was tomorrow's problem. Today was for building bridges, for taking the first steps toward a genuinely cooperative galactic community. But deep in the back of her mind, the part of her that was quintessentially human, the part that had evolved on a predator-filled savanna under the harsh African sun, remained vigilant, ready. Because if there was one lesson humanity had learned in its long, bloody history, it was this: peace was precious precisely because it was never guaranteed.